We're here to talk about modern kickoffs, modern sales kickoffs. Just, I'm curious. I know we were both talking about kind of our age and the grayness in our hairs. If you had to just guess, how many kickoffs do you think you've been a part of over the years in your career? 40, 50, 20 kickoffs in total.
Well, mid-years included, probably about 40. Yeah.
Right. So we've seen our share of kickoffs. And before we dive into your best practices of the amazing modern kickoffs that you have here, I'm seeing some folks on the line going 37 here, 40 here. Maybe let's just take 60, 90 seconds and let's talk about some of the horror stories. Before we talk about the good, let's talk about what are some of the worst kickoff experiences that you may have been a part of. Not suggesting you led them, but what are some bad things, right? Like, for example, I've got memories of being in Vegas, locked up in a room without windows for a full week and just being stood up, presenter after presenter after presenter after presenter, and having a pretty dry, boring experience. That would be a no bueno kickoff experience.
Or the latter, where you would not only have presentation, but everyone in your organization wants to present at a kickoff, and that generally falls flat. But one of the worst experiences was when we tried to have too much rah-rah as opposed to actionable things, and the rah-rah got totally out of control. And although it could have been fun and it was, it was an experience for the audience, it really wasn't helpful. It really didn't move what I consider your upcoming year, put it that way.
You know what? I think that's such a great insight, right? We went from, here's two really poor experiences, death by PowerPoint, all the way through to too much rah-rah. And in both instances, we weren't able to move the needle, to make an impact, to get alignment, to get people motivated, inspired, and educated, and really on path to having a great year. Wow, that's the rah-rah. I love that, Mark. I love that. I asked you to join us today because I had the good fortune of working with you. You had invited me down to one of your kickoffs. And then it was such a great kickoff experience. It really embodied the essence of modern sales kickoffs. And I came down to Carmel and spoke, but I really watched you and your team. And I wrote down some words in my book, Enablement Mastery. So I thought I would sit here and do a little read. And so hopefully I'm not going to get you all blushing right now, but folks, Enablement Mastery, really there's a whole chapter on kickoffs. And, there's a section here where I'm just going to read it. And it's showtime. Mark Siciliano, a friend and colleague of mine who is an experienced enablement professional, invited me to speak to his team at his annual sales kickoff. The theme of the event was it's showtime. And it was intended to create a parallel between performers on stage and salespeople selling. I love it. Now is the time to ensure that our teams are putting into practice all of our playbooks and best practices. It's showtime for our salespeople as they are getting on calls, having meetings, and presenting solutions to their customers. After all, the learning and coaching, it's time to execute across all the steps in customer engagement. Should we dive into It's Showtime and let's kind of share with everyone what you did in that program to make it amazing?
Well, it was amazing because I had a lot of people helping me out. I have a very good team that allow me to look good on stage. But at the end of the day, what we recognized was it was a perfect time at Demandbase where we had built the platform, we had things in place. And when we wanted to establish a kickoff, I do it based on long-term planning of the company. So Showtime actually is just phase one of a 3-year kickoff plan. So I'm hoping that we meet our goals so that each next kickoff kind of represents the next stage. As an example, this year is next level. It's not Showtime. Now it's next level. We're in the middle of it now. I'll tell you how that ends up in December. But ultimately what we did is we recognized that with It's Showtime that we needed to emphasize the actionability of what we delivered. We felt that our reps were experienced and maybe were going through the motions, and I wanted them to recognize that anything that we would provide them during these 3 days would be actionable. So I didn't want to waste time with anything that wasn't worth meeting together as a group. And so we used, obviously, your platform to literally record deal wins. We asked people what they were thankful for the coming year.
Wow.
And both of those, we had everyone look to kind of select the winning dozen out of 200 people. And throughout the event, we were putting out there the deal win stories from our strategic reps or our mid-market reps or our enterprise reps, and then what they were thankful for. And it really brought two things that I think we lack, not just in SCO, but in selling. And that was what good looks like in a natural setting, and then a sense of empathy, something that we sellers sometimes lack, which is this ability just to recognize that, we are thankful we're in an incredible profession. We deliver some really great functionality. And quite frankly, it really brought the organization together to bring out this sort of authenticity in how we should be successful with Showtime.
And so let me just pause for a second. I think let's just kind of go a little deeper in this. I love what you did. Right. So basically, before you brought your team together, you had orchestrated using SalesHood the ability for your teams to record A, deal win, right? What's their biggest deal win from the year? B, what are they grateful for? What a beautiful thing to have people do. So you had a couple hundred people recording short little 60, 90-second vignettes that then your leadership team, yourself, you reviewed, and you cherry-picked, you chose the top ones that then you decided to celebrate and use as content in your actual event when you actually got to the kickoff. Did I get that right?
You hit it on the head. As a matter of fact, we even had our C-level leaders record as well. So
everyone recorded.
Everybody, every manager, every individual contributor. And they literally had to do it to be able to attend the kickoff. So I sort of carrot and stick, we actually rewarded those that we selected, and they were all reviewed. So I was surprised at the uptick in people wanting to do it, and that the C-suite was engaged as well. So that was very cool.
So for those of you listening, right, best practice number one from Mark is capture the culture, capture the stories, capture the gratitude, do as much of that before people show up. So maybe a month, how much time before did you roll it out? A couple weeks before?
I did it 3 weeks before.
3 weeks before. It's important. The detail matters. You gave people 3 weeks of time to record their win story and then to record a gratitude story. And then they actually watched them before they showed up, I think, right?
Right.
Which is amazing. So somebody asked a question and said, hey, it's great that Mark's got a big team, and it's beautiful that you're recognizing everyone. But when I'm a team of one, how do I do this? And so that's the beauty of SalesHood, and that's the beauty of technology. You can go in there, issue a challenge, have people record a win story, have people record a gratitude video, whether it's your salespeople, customer people, product people, engineers, leaders, partners, and then just that's how you can actually scale as a team of one. And that was for Melody.
Well, and let me just comment for Melody. When I say there's a big team, I had a lot of SMEs that contributed to the content that was delivered. I actually, when I hit Showtime, I was a team of 1.5. So I had one other person actually supporting me who has followed me from actually Oracle to Marketo to Demandbase. So I totally understand the small team concept for sure.
And that's a tribute to you, Mark, and your great leadership and why I love working with you. Okay, so listen, most companies talk a lot about pre-work, talk a lot about grabbing the culture, talk a lot about getting all that. Now, let's talk about the event, right? So now you're in that 3-day experience and you're using some of the content. Maybe talk to me a little bit about how did you make those 3 days really impactful for everyone?
Well, we personalized it for Demandbase, right? We have 3 main pillars. We build pipeline, we capture attention, and we close business. That's our themes throughout the year. And so each of those things were emphasized over the 3 days. And we made sure that it was motivational, it was foundational, it was educational and inspirational. And you couldn't overdo one over another. So it had to be balanced. And so in those 3 areas, for example, building pipeline, we started about, hey, what are the best practices and what do we have in place today that when you leave kickoff, you can get on the phone, write your email, do whatever you need to do. But this is the roadmap for success for building that pipeline. Reps love the fact that you're able to give them just sort of kind of marching orders that go, I can follow this plan and make it my own and deliver on that. Similarly, for capturing attention, whether it was in discovery, handling objections, all those cool things that we all know about. But again, it was actionable. And it was never like I wouldn't allow anyone on stage that was going to say, this is what we're going to do this year. Except for Chris Golick, who is our CEO and can share what our vision is. Because vision's important, but I think a SCO really is the springboard for the year. So let's provide folks with the tools for that success. And so in that pre-work, everyone was set up to know exactly what the kickoff was going to be about.
Yeah.
The agendas, who was speaking, what the takeaways were. I mean, literally, it wasn't new when they sat in their seats. They were ready for it, right?
Truly accelerated the knowledge transfer. And you got everybody ready for the year. Listen, there was a lot more to the pre-work than just the video stories of the gratitude. You gave,
yeah.
And so there's a lot of depth of content, right? Just think about what we talked about. One of my pet peeves is death by PowerPoint. You're able to take the traditional kind of content presentations that people would get up and stand and deliver. You took them, you put them into short video vignettes. People were watching them. So people were ready and primed. And I love it. You got them to be action oriented. And go ahead.
And I actually took the TED Talk approach to all of this. Like I wouldn't let anyone speak for longer than 20 minutes. And after that 20 minutes, it was always interaction. We try to interact with the crowd and ensure that there was a different medium that they were looking at. Because as everyone knows, you can't hold people's attention for a length of time. I actually had breaks every hour and a half.
Yeah.
I made sure that there was interaction between our sales teams because they love that just as much. And you get it, right?
I've got like a personal rule. If you've hit 30 minutes and you haven't done a collaborative team exercise, played some music, got everybody to stand up and shake their bodies, or played a video, or engage the audience in a question, you're going to lose people. And so you got to get the right content. It's got to flow. The other thing that you did really beautifully was you used the videos and the content and the learnings from the pre-work. You injected it into your event.
Oh, absolutely.
How'd you do that?
Well, quite honestly, we recognize that instead of trying to be funny, trying to be comical, because if you're not funny, those things fall pretty flat. Just leverage the voice of the audience. When they see themselves up there, it's like anything. You kind of get a rush. So everyone was interested because no one would know who was coming up, right? It could have been anybody. And so it really resonated well, the feedback. We even did our surveys through SalesHood every day. At the end of each day, we had people like fill it out. What did you feel? What was the takeaway? And that, the functionality within your platform really helped us really either do pre-work or do things during the day or do a survey. And it was pretty valuable, obviously.
No, I appreciate it. It's a lot more than just video stories. We have this concept called huddles where you can ask questions, you can engage with content, and it's collaborative and people can answer questions and folks want to be connected. And you truly created this amazing energy. And that's why I wrote about it in the book. And having a theme, having the pre-work, having the engaging content. Someone's asked a question. And so
Sure.
I'm going to read it out loud. And, can you give a specific example of a session that was aligned to the different pillars and how it aligned with education versus inspiration?
Cool. Capturing attention is a big one. I think sometimes in the sales cycle, we fail to, I consider, quality discovery, meaning we ask questions as a discovery to get pain, as opposed to really trying to further qualify the deal, get to the no as fast as possible. So we had breakouts during the session that worked exercises literally in packs of 30 and talked about what are the questions that make sense to you? Where do you find yourself driving in that discovery? And I found a lot of people got to product functionality very quickly. And I thought, no, in this world, we need to be much more strategic and talk about how, what's the marketing spend? How is it aligned to the executive priorities? All of those selling things. And then we'd share how somebody at Demand Base did that well. I didn't say this is what Mark Siciliano thinks is the right way to sell. I said, look, why reinvent the wheel? We have dozens of people. As a matter of fact, 60% of them made quota that year. That do it right. And so that was an example of reinforcement of what works, foundational. It was inspiring to hear your own, sales reps kind of share what worked, but also I didn't tell them what the right answer was because we were whiteboarding and filling out the questionnaire, filling out the board with what's the appropriate questions, captured it all, condensed it, sent it all out in a summary in SalesHood, and people bought into it. So I hope that answered whoever's question.
Yeah, it was Justin Johnson asked the question. I'll give an example also. I remember because I was there, so I can speak openly about it and with knowledge, with experience. I remember one of the topics that we talked about that you had me participate or share on was storytelling. And I think we talked about kind of storytelling as a key driver of amazing sales execution. And we gave a framework and then quick one. And then didn't we pull a couple of people on stage and have them actually share their story? And that's really how we move beyond just here's the topic. Like we pulled a couple of top performers, brought them on stage. And then anyway, that was, I remember that example, right?
Well, I remember him, one of the guys running on stage, like raised his hand and ran on stage. By the way, that gained him going to club, by the way.
Look at that. It's a beautiful thing. So thank you, Justin. There was another question that came up just around, all that pre-work with the win stories and the gratitude stories, the peer reviews. I think the question is, did people record or watch just their own or their teams or everyone's? And
we placed the minimum. We said it would be great for you to take a broad spectrum of reviews. And so we wanted everyone to look at 10. And, during their break over the holidays with a glass of their favorite beverage to listen to 30 or 60 or 90 seconds of somebody, that was worth it. I mean, if they had to do all 200, obviously.
It's not realistic.
Yeah, not at all. I mean, I did. I looked at them because I wanted to really make sure that, people were doing them. But I have a great group of people at my company, as I'm sure everyone on the line does with theirs. And they bought in and I hope it continues.
I think, so we've talked about pre-work. We've got amazing, awesome front of the kickoff experience. Then you've got a really engaging kickoff that feeds from the energy, feeds from the content. It's engaging, it's action-oriented, it's aligned with your themes, it's aligned with your goals. What happened afterwards? What kind of work did you do with people as reinforcement after the event?
Well, good question. We created what is called a sales all hands every month. And every month, that sales all hand mirrored the pillars that we developed at the beginning of the year. And so it was never more than 30 days away from reviewing what we promised we were going to do back at the SCO. My CRO says you should always punch the biggest problems in the mouth first and always do what you say you're going to do. And so every sales all hand meeting from February on was exactly about what was discussed in January. So it resonated and it didn't even seem like reinforcement because it was just part of our DNA. We got together. So I love that. I think a little piece of advice for everyone else, make your SCOs align with what you do during the year when you meet as a sales organization. So it's always in front of people. We do it as salespeople when we speak to customers, right? You bring up the challenge or the pain or the whatever it is that kind of galvanizes that relationship. Do it inside. I think that's.
Yeah, I love it. This is great. So you said something, and I think you said 60% of your sellers hit quota that year. And your results in the last 12 to 18 months have been amazing with dramatic improvements in win rates, dramatic improvements in attainment. Talk to us about the impact that the way you orchestrated this program at the beginning of the year had on the year.
I would be totally ignorant if I said it was totally sales productivity and my vision that has made this happen. Our CRO is fantastic. Gabe Rogel, Chris Golick, these guys have a vision. I'm following their plan. small wins build over time, and confidence in what they're doing resonates. And so I had so much support from those that said, you know what, we had a blank canvas, and now you're changing the culture and learning without overdoing it, right? You can kill people with education and they're not out there selling. So proper balance. And with appropriate reinforcement, like you said, we split sales cycle times in half, ARR up 80%, close rates up 40. Now, that's not going to happen every year. I'm hoping we do the same thing this year. But it really just says the proper combination of strategic vision and action plan makes sense. So actionability, keep it short, reference it every month when you have sales meetings. I think that's the recipe.
These are great tips, Mark, great results, great outcomes. And I know the kudos go to you and your entire team. You've got a fabulous team and you're a fabulous leader. Last question before we wind down. What's on track for your 2020? Next level, you're calling it?
Well, no, we're in next level right now.
So what's your 2020 plan?
Gosh, I don't want to give it away, but
okay. Let me ask the question. What are you going to do differently?
Well, I'll give you the tactic because it makes sense, and it probably resonates to people. When you're in a SaaS business, there are two different ways to sell. One is bringing net new business into the company, and the other one is how do you create a long-term strategy for your current customers. And as reps kind of balance that world of net new and managing renewal, we have to make sure that they are crisp in recognizing there's a difference between the two. And so we're going to try to focus on those things in an appropriate manner, leveraging the pillars continuously that we think work. Still the building pipeline, capturing attention, closing business. But those are big rocks, that I think as we move to 2020, we should look for. So I think I'm going to use, I might use mastery.
I love it.
Mastery as the theme. If we had showtime, then next level, the third might be mastery. So,
I'm and you know what, as a token of my appreciation for you being here with us and for the continued partnership that we have together, you can count on me if I can play a role to support you and your team and come down to Carmel again. I'd love to be able to help you and provide any insight or, get up on stage or run a workshop, whatever you need, Mark. I'm here to support you.
No, we enjoy having you. You were great the last time you came down. And so I would be more than,
Or we could do a pre-workout. So listen, let's just kind of recap, right? So we've talked about the amazing pre-work, action-oriented, engaging, kind of event. And then we talked about kind of the reinforcement that happens driving those themes across the year. We talked about your great results, great outcomes. And I think now you're really focusing on what are those really big rocks that you need to move forward. And, I think any last tips you have for folks, any final words of wisdom for folks who are leading organizations, think of big companies, small companies, maybe someone's first kickoff that they're leading. What would you say to folks?
Yeah. It's something my parents shared with me a long time ago. And it's really less is more. You don't have to boil the ocean during a SCO. Get your major themes, keep them crisp, make it enjoyable, get them enthusiastic, and then you're off and running. I mean, that's basically it, whether it's at Oracle or a SalesHood kickoff, right? It doesn't matter. Less is more.
I love it. Super grateful. I'm going to just wind down with one specific slide here, which I can't find. There it is. There's your our great slide. So let me just wind down right now and say, everyone that has joined this SalesHood Live webinar on modern sales kickoffs, you'll get a follow-up email. We've got a lot of blogs. There's an amazing ebook. There's a whole chapter in Enablement Mastery on kickoff events. And there was a question that came up around, you have an example of an agenda, a 3-day agenda that has interactivity, collaboration. We have a blog on that. So, we'll send a follow-up. You'll get access to the blogs, the guides, templates. We've got a bunch of talks from other leaders just like Mark. And if anybody wants to see a demo, please, you can request a demo online. My team will walk you through it so you can see all these great programs that Mark has talked about. You can see it in action. And with that, Mark, I think we say goodbye.
Well, appreciate the offer. Thank you very much, Elay. I enjoyed it.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it very much. We're going to round of applause. Boom.